Honorable members, welcome to GEMA webinar. We are privileged to have among us Dr. K.V.T.S. Pavan Kumar as the speaker from the industry. Dr. K.V.T.S. Pavan Kumar is an accomplished biotechnology professional with over 20 years of experience in research and development. He has a strong track record in developing sustainable biotechnological solutions in agriculture, biotechnology, bioenergy, and genetic engineering. Known for his expertise in translating research into commercially viable products that meets industry needs, he has successfully delivered complex biotechnology projects from the ground up. His passion for research is evident through his portfolio of more than 10 patents and numerous national and international publications. Dedicated to advancing scientific research and fostering cross-functional collaborations, Dr. Pavan spent over a decade with a Swiss-based multinational company before taking on his current role leading the research and development efforts at Catalyst Group. I invite our knowledge partner to start knowledge share. Over to you, Dr. Kumar.
Thank you very much, Rekha. Thank you very much for all the audience for joining today's session. Good evening, all. I'm Dr. Pavan, working as Vice President R&D for Catalyst Biotechnologies Private Limited. Catalyst Group is a 22-year-old company having its operations in 28 countries across the globe with a client numbers of more than 800 clients across the globe. By saving more than 8,000 crore worth of losses to our customers, we became India's #1 and most trusted biotech company. We are all to be very proud to be fortunate to contribute towards the Atmanirbhar Bharat, where via ethanol blending program, all of us are contributing for the country's GDP as well as country's growth. While all the stakeholders in this particular process, starting from the farmers to the end users, everyone are getting benefited. So when it comes to the market dynamics, every day the dynamics are getting changed, and the day by day the raw material prices are increasing, and there is a big challenge in terms of operational costs and the raw material quality. So in order to counter that, we have to maintain or we have to produce our ethanol production with as much as possible with good efficiencies. So why the efficiencies are important? So when it comes to ethanol production, the efficiencies play a direct role on our profitability. If we increase our ethanol yield, then it will cut the cost, it will maximize the profits, and it will also help us in reducing our optimal usage of the raw material like water, energy, and other inputs such as enzymes which are being used for the fermentation process, as well as the nutrients and additives. So not only that, it will also help us in optimizing our input cost as well as getting more benefited out of the same raw material which we use, so that a scalable growth will be ensured for us. Not only that, when we produce the ethanol at the efficient way, it will also give us the market edge, cost leadership with respect to the changing dynamics of the market. So when it comes to the efficiency, we have to not only see one particular aspect, but we have to see the compounding effect of profitability, sustainability, and the market edge. So coming to the topic today, what is the role of analytical labs in ethanol fermentation? So as we all know, analytics play a big role in terms of their time-to-time analysis, which helps us in correcting many things and then identifying many aspects. So when it comes to the ethanol fermentation, specifically Monitoring the fermentation trends is an important aspect. For example, we have to monitor time to time what are the sugar levels, how my fermentation is going on, and what are the yields I am getting it. And if we see any deviation, we would like to correct it then and there. Otherwise, it is going to make a big impact on our production process. Not only that, early detection of the issues, like if the fermentation trend is going beyond the normal trends, then it is better we control it in the beginning itself. As we all know, the good beginning is makes us towards a good ending. So if the fermentation starts with good beginning, then obviously we are going to get good yields in it. So as soon as any deviation occurs, if we are able to detect it, which will help us to resolve many of the issues in the production efficiencies. And one more thing is, as you all know, there are two important aspects when it comes to the grain fermentation. One, the enzymes, and the second one is yeast. Both these are closely related. For example, when it comes to the factors that affects the enzyme activity or maybe the yeast productivity, if we look at it, there are certain aspects like pH, temperature, and nutrients will play a huge role in it. So if we analyze the pH and temperatures and then we try to take the corrective actions then and there when it is required, and we try to add the nutrients at the optimal level when it is required, which will help us to increase the efficiencies. Not only that, the analytical lab will provide us a good backup or backing up in terms of our decision making process. If we know why a process is going above or below and what is the reason for it, then accordingly we will take the correct action. So which will help us to take the decision based on the data. Let us discuss about a simple example. Whenever we see in the fermentation process, there is the gravity fall is not happening as per the expected trend. So immediately majority of us will think about adding some urea and then try to increase the gravity fall. Most of the cases it may work, it may not work, but that is we are just trying to hit trying to take a decision without having any scientific backup or any scientific logic behind it. But majority of the cases this may not be able to solve our problem. So if we take any decision with the proper data backed by the analysis, then will give us a very good edge. Maybe it may not require to add that much urea. With little amount urea might have helped us to increase the gravity fall of the fermentation. So always it is better to take these kind of decisions with a better data, so which will help us in reducing the input costs. Coming to the analytical labs, most of us will say that we have a good analytical lab. So what are the normal equipment that has to be in place in case when we want to run the fermentation smooth, ethanol fermentation smooth? The first equipment which is very important and widely accepted by the industry across the globe is HPLC. So HPLC is one such equipment which will help us to measure the ethanol quantities very accurately. Not only ethanol, it will also help us to identify the byproducts which are being formed in the fermentation. So with this, we can actually detect time to time how the fermentation is going on and what kind of abnormalities we are seeing, and we can take the corrective measures accordingly. The next equipment is gas chromatograph. In this, we can actually detect the various inhibitors and contaminants which are formed during the fermentation, not only causing trouble to the fermentation but also to the final ethanol quality. So gas chromatograph will play a crucial role when we want to determine the quality of ethanol which was produced. Other than that, we have the ancillary equipment like pH meters, as I mentioned it to you, which is very important in terms of monitoring the enzyme activities and the yeast health, where maintaining the pH at the optimal level is very important. So having the pH meter will help us to track these aspects and then take the corrective actions accordingly. Microscope is another equipment which is really needed for the ethanol industry, where we can actually monitor the yeast viability, how the yeast is growing and what is the status of the yeast, whether it is healthy or whether it is coming under any stress, or is it got contaminated, whether the yeast or the fermentation process got contaminated, we will get to know by using the microscope. Next one is the very advanced technology, NIR, near infrared analyzers. These analyzers were introduced into the market very long back, but the adaptability into the ethanol industry was not much. Recently, it started working, or it started getting adopted into the Indian scenario also. But a lot of challenges we are facing in terms of doing it, because while picking these kind of instruments, it is very important to see which kind of instrument we have to pick, from which vendor we have to pick, and how we should pick, what kind of other aspects we have to select along with the instrument. Because as we know, like in case of HPLC, we need to have right detector, right column, and right machine. The similar way, when we are picking these kind of NIR equipment, we should have the right equipment in place, as well as with the right calibration package, which is very important for making the analysis. Next one is the moisture analyzers, which will not only help us in terms of identifying the moisture content in DDGS, but also in the raw material. So if based on the raw material moisture contents, we can actually take precautions in terms of storage, in terms of using it in the process, and in terms of helping, or in terms of avoiding the contamination that is going to come into our raw material. Apart from that, we need to have accurate weighing balances, which will help us in weighing the samples, chemicals, and etc. Apart from all these things, we also should have the equipment which is shown here, like the green color and the yellow color one, which you are seeing here on the screen. It is a lactometer. It helps in identifying lactic acid presence in the system, which is a very quick and accurate method where we can use this machine to measure the lactic acid content in our fermentation wort. It hardly takes 5 minutes to measure it, whereas the other equipment will be taking 30 to 40 minutes to measure the lactic acid content. Not only lactic acid, this particular machine will also help. This is a very simple and easy handheld device which can help us in monitoring a lot of other water related parameters also. Depending on the kind of strips we are using in it, it will help us to generate a lot of other value added results during our fermentation process. Coming back to the equipment, I would like to emphasize the minimum requirements that any plant should have. The first one is the HPLC. The HPLC is a robust machine which was widely accepted, as I mentioned it before, across the globe, which is very reliable and precise equipment. So this particular equipment is a minimum basic need for any grain plant or any ethanol plant to ensure that they try to get more out of the same raw material. So when it comes to the investment cost and other things, the HPLC machines will be ranging from 18 lakhs to 29 lakhs, depending on the kind of model and make we are taking it and from which vendor we are taking it. For example, if we see a lot of players are there in the market from where we can get the HPLC, like Agilent, Shimarju, Perkin-Elmer, Waters, etc. But mostly in our ethanol industry, Agilent and Shimarju are very well accepted, and they all know the methods and other things which has to be done were very well calibrated on it. Coming to the running cost, when we want to use HPLC machine, it will be costing us around 2.5 lakhs for the column replacement. It depends on how many number of samples we are analyzing. Roughly, it will be around 3,000 samples we can run on a column. And if the column is maintained properly and it is used properly, we can even extend it up to 4,000 or 5,000, depending on the kind of the maintenance or the kind of care we are going to give it to the column. Apart from this, there will be an annual comprehensive maintenance thing which will come to the HPLC. This will start only after first year. It will be approximately 3 lakhs. So other consumables will be depending on the kind of samples we are analyzing, etc. One important aspect for HPLC is the manpower. The person who is operating it is, he or she should be skilled enough, they should be properly trained. It is not easy to maintain the system as we maintain any weighing balance or any pH meter. So the proper care needs to be taken. So for that we need a skilled manpower or the trained manpower for running these HPLC systems. So this is about the HPLC which we recommend or anyone should adopt if they want to understand how they can improve or how they can identify the gaps in their production process. Coming to the next aspect, the NIR analyzers. The NIR analyzers are the advanced technology based instruments. As I mentioned it to you, though the technology is very old, the adaptability into the grain industry has started very recently, especially in India. There are different models, different makes. The people are giving it, like ft-nir is one company, Perkin is another company who is giving it. But when we pick these things, we have to pick or we have to take care of certain aspects. As I mentioned it to you, these should have a good calibration packages. It is like a small software patch which they will update in the machine. So if we have the right let us take a small battery kind of thing. If we have the right battery, it will work in a right way. Similarly, when we pick these kind of equipment, we have to properly pick it in such a way that it is coming up with the calibration packages. One aspect which we have to remember is majority of the times when we are trying to cut the cost or when we are trying to bargain with the vendors, they will unknowingly or without our information or without our knowledge, they will remove these calibration packages because these are the ones, it is like a rifle without bullets. So without this, we will not be able to do any analysis, and majority of the plants who has bought it already, they are facing challenges because of this particular aspect. So when we go for these kind of equipment, please ensure that you have a right calibration package also along with the machine, so that even though it may be cost you another 2 to 3 lakhs extra, but you will be able to use this machine effectively. When it comes to these machines, it has two variants. One will be called grain analyzers, another one will be called process analyzers. The grain analyzers are very basic versions of these machines, which will help in analysis of raw material like maize or maize or rice, where they will be able to analyze the parameters like starch, protein, and moisture. But when it comes to the process analyzers will be able to do a wide range of analysis, which includes starch, protein, moisture, ethanol, sugar, lactic acid, acetic acid, glycerol. That means starting from the process to the end of the process, all the parameters will be taken care by using the process analyzers. When it comes to the cost comparison, grain analyzers will be costing around 10 lakhs, whereas the process analyzers will be quite expensive. It will be around 65 lakhs. The running cost will be nil. This is the beauty of these machines. And AMC cost is also very minimal. Consumables cost is also minimal. One important aspect which everyone has to understand is these machines should not, it is not required to have a skilled manpower. Any person who actually knows how to take the sample in a cup, put it under the machine, and then touch a button. That means a small smartphone operator, the person who is having knowledge about how to operate a smartphone, will be able to do the job with it, provided the right calibration packages were already placed in the machine. So this is the advantage of this particular machine, and the sample timing is also sample analysis time is also very minimal. In a span of 1 minute, we will get all these analysis results on our screen, whereas the other equipment will take 5 minutes to 35 minutes. For example, if you want to analyze only lactic acid using the that lactic acid machine, it takes 5 minutes. But when we go for the HPLC, minimum run time will be around 30 minutes to 40 minutes. But with this particular equipment, within 1 minute, we will be able to ascertain a lot of values, which is going to be very useful. And coming to the process analyzer, this is a very important aspect where the process analyzer should be able to be upscaled. That means you can keep the machine which was shown on the screen. The process analyzer is a desktop model, but the similar model can be put into the process. For example, it can be fixed on the raw material belt, or maybe in the liquefaction tank, or maybe in the fermentation tank, which will be able to give us real-time data, which will be more helpful rather than doing it or doing the post-mortem kind of situation. So the advantage with this particular process analyzer DS7250 is the same model calibration packages can be upscaled, or it will be used for the in-process analyzers. So these are the advantages of this machine. And the major disadvantage or the bottleneck which we could see is the pricing. But once we start using it, we won't feel it is like a bottleneck. When it comes to the analysis parameters, as we have seen the equipment, we have seen the important aspects of the two important equipment that any grain plant should have. The next one is what kind of parameters we have to analyze. The important parameters which has to be analyzed are the raw materials, the in-process samples, and the final product. When it comes to the raw material, we should be able to measure the moisture, starch, sugar content, and any contamination. When it comes to the in-process samples, we should be able to measure the sugar utilization trend, ethanol concentration, and fermentation kinetics. For example, how the fermentation rate is going on, what kind of byproducts are getting formed, and what is the yeast kinetics, and how yeast is performing, what is my enzyme conversion efficiencies. So all these things has to be checked in process samples. Coming to the final product, we have to check the ethanol purity, byproducts like methanol and fusel oils, which are undesirable for us and also creates problem when it is in the fermentation process to the yeast. Apart from that, we will also be doing some kind of compliance testings with respect to the byproducts which are getting formed in the final product. So these are the basic parameters we have to analyze. As we know what kind of equipment are available and what kind of parameters we have to analyze, let us focus on the sampling plan, because without having sampling plan, it won't make sense. We should have a proper sampling plan in terms of what has to be analyzed, when it has to be analyzed, how many times it has to be analyzed. So when it comes to the ethanol fermentation, as I mentioned it to you, raw material, in process, and final product. These are the three major categories which we have to focus. And within that, if we see, there will be certain pre-fermentation parameters which we have to measure for each and every batch, each and every fermentation, or each and every fermenter. So there are the parameters are like starch content, glucose, pH of the slurry, solids, and enzyme dosing, which is basically the enzyme activity. So these are the parameters which we consider it as pre-fermentation parameters. These things has to be analyzed for each and every batch. And the fermentation monitoring has to be done at the intervals of 6 hours or 12 hours, at least every 12 or 24 hours. We have to do these analysis depending on our availability of the manpower and availability of the resources, where we will be measuring the starch and sugar consumption, ethanol, pH, temperature, and yeast biomass, how much yeast is getting produced or how much yeast is present in the system. So these are the fermentation parameters which has to be mentioned for every 12 or 24 hours at periodic intervals. So it will give us a trend like how our fermentation is happening. Apart from that, there are certain parameters like byproducts, residual sugars, contamination, and higher alcohols. These parameters probably we can check every week on weekly basis, so that will give us any alarming aspects in the fermentation. Apart from that, there are certain tests which we have to conduct maybe a monthly basis. For example, yeast viability. When we receive any yeast into the plant, we should be able to check the yeast viability using the methylene blue method under the microscope, as well as the nutrient levels which are present in the raw material like protein and fan contents, volatile compounds which are getting formed during the fermentation process in the fermentation vat using GCMS, total organic load that is coming in the fermentation vat, and remaining protein and nitrogen DDGS. So these tests maybe at monthly basis if we do, that will give us an understanding about how our process is going on, and is there any gaps or is there any areas for improvement. We will be able to figure it out. When it comes to the sampling, as we have the sampling plan, next thing we have to focus is there are certain sample collection guidelines. Unless and until the sample is properly picked, properly collected, it becomes very difficult to get the proper results. For example, I have to check the contamination and I am handling the sample, or I am taking the sample or collecting the samples without following hygiene practices, then my results will not be proper. So the first aspect, when we are collecting the samples, we have to ensure we do that in sterile and sealed bottles. So these bottles should be leak proof, so that even during transport from one place to another place, or maybe from plant to the analysis place, there won't be any leakage. And the sample should be properly labeled. If the sample is not properly labeled, there may be a mix up, and we will not be able to exactly figure out the trend or the fermentation rate, how it is going on. Instead of marking it one, or if we mark it two, step one, step two, if these two things are getting replaced, then there will be a completely mismatch of results, and we'll not be able to figure it out where it went wrong. Next one is when we are shipping these fermenting samples, or when we are collecting these fermenting samples, we have to ensure that there is no pressure buildup in the bottles. So if the pressure is getting built up in the bottles, these bottles will burst and will create problem in the leakage, and it will also create problems to the other samples. So handling in hygiene is also very important. As I mentioned it to you, before collecting these samples, we have to follow proper hygiene methods. We have to ensure that there is no cross contamination, and collect the samples with the guidelines. Not only that, when we are collecting these samples, one important aspect is notifying the lab who is going to do the analysis. This is very important because the analyst may be involved in some other activity, but if the sample is not analyzed on the right time, for example, let us take the fermenting sample only. If it is in the middle of the fermentation, if we analyze that particular sample at the right time, it will be able to give us a better insights. If the sample analysis is getting delayed, the sample may get fermented further and may give us erroneous results. So it is very important whenever we are shipping the samples to the lab, or whenever we are collecting the lab, it is better to inform the analyst, so that at the right time and the right way, the samples are getting analyzed. One other important aspect where we have to one important aspect which we have to ensure is maintenance and calibration of our equipment. It is very important. Many times we face the challenge in terms of the erroneous results. This is mainly because of the maintenance and calibration activities. If the calibration was not done and the maintenance was not done for the equipment, or even for a smallest equipment like pH meter or the weighing balance, if these things were not calibrated as per the standard guidelines, whatever analysis we'll do, it may be having erroneous results. So we have to ensure these equipment are getting maintained and calibrated at the right time for the better and accuracy, and to maintain the consistent results, and to reduce the downtime, and increasing the shelf, extend the equipment's life. Maintaining and calibrating it is very important. Not only that, even if we go for any auditing or maybe certification process, it is very important whatever we use in the analysis process, these equipment are properly calibrated and maintained. It not only gives us the certification and other things, but also gives us the trust on our data, what we are analyzing. With the properly analyzed data, I will be 100% sure that my results are proper, and I am not giving any erroneous results. So when it comes to the maintenance activities, for each equipment, there should be a cycle. It should be clearly defined. Like pH meter, it has to be calibrated on daily basis. HPLC and GC equipment has to be calibrated on weekly basis. Enzymes which we use should be validated for each batch. Whenever we get any new set of enzymes, enzyme batch, we should be able to validate it. and the sterilization of the sampling equipment and the analysis place, everything, lab benches, everything has to be done on daily basis. So if we properly do this, we will be 100% confident that our results are trustworthy and we have with better accuracy, and we will be able to take decisions based on the data in a proper way. Next thing is role of documentation, as it is very critical not only for the maintaining the logbooks, but also in terms of the analysis records, calibration records, and how, when it has to be done, how it has to be done. The SOPs, the standard operating procedures of the equipment, all these things will help us in getting better results. So that in case of any deviations or anything, people can go back and check their SOPs. People can go back and check their logbooks to see is there any deviation that they are observing. So based on that, their results will be validated. So maintaining the documentation is very important, which will help us in optimizing the process, not only for the lab analysis as well as for the plants. And operational safety and training aspects, based on the logs or based on the data or based on the documentation, we will be able to understand where are the process gaps, where are the human errors. So based on that, we can accordingly take up the trainings. It will also help us, the proper documentation will also help us in maintaining the inventory cost at the optimal level. And apart from that, it will be a great help for us for the regulatory aspects and traceability. So without doing this for the sake of doing, all the documents, logbooks, everything has to be done as per the actual records, as per the actual results, so that which will be very helpful for us in increasing the efficiency of our ethanol production. Let us discuss one or two case studies, how the power of analysis, how the power of lab will be able to turn around the complete game or the picture. So this is one plant where their reported issues are like liquefaction PHE is choking, fermenters are getting slow or it is getting stuck, high RS is getting remain. So these are the issues that were reported. So based on that, the analytical team has done certain observations and they have done certain analysis. The first thing what they have observed is there is a big variation in the particle size analysis. The particles which are supposed to be in the range, the raw material, the floor particle size was uneven. Because of that, the enzyme is not able to act on it, and due to that, there is a flow of the floor is not happening properly. The clumps are getting formed, and because of that, the PHE is choking. So the major culprit behind this particular aspect is the the floor sieve size. So analysis of the sieve size, floor sieve size at regular intervals will help us to avoid these kind of problems. And coming to the next one, what the team has observed or what the analyst has observed is heavy contamination in pre-fermenter and fermenters. So the pre-fermenters and fermenters are getting affected because there was some kind of contamination has come into the picture from the raw material or from the recycling source, and this is causing problem and it is not allowing yeast to grow properly. So the fermentation is getting stuck and RS is getting remain. This was addressed by doing the CAP of the plant at the identified locations. Wherever the microbial count is more, those areas were selected and have done the CAP properly so that this problem was addressed. And next one is the fermentation temperature. As I mentioned it to you in the beginning, pH and temperatures plays an important role in fermentation, smooth fermentation. So the pH is going above 38, which is not desirable for any enzyme or for the yeast. So when the temperatures were reduced and the PF was also not transferred properly on time, so that after preparing the PF, there was some retention they were giving, which is creating challenges in terms of accumulating the contamination. So the PF transfer, everything were taken care. Based on the identifications, based on the data, they have taken these data driven actions and the fermentation started moving smooth. So this is a one simple case study which helps or which makes us understand how it will be helpful. In this particular process, if we look at it, the HPLC is one which helped us to understand there is a contamination by analyzing the byproducts. Microscope is another equipment which helped us to identify the bacteria or the contamination which is present at different sites. So accordingly, the action was taken. So with use of right equipment at the right place, we can generate more benefits. Coming to the second case study, where the issues reported were increased RS and decreased yield, low gravity fall and dead yeast, contamination in PF. So these are the issues which were reported. So the analyst has done his analysis and observed that there are certain recycling streams coming into the liquefaction and fermentation, and because of that, it is also bringing some kind of contamination into the picture. Because of this particular contamination or the stress that is bringing into the system, yeast is not able to perform well. This is creating problem on yeast health. And another aspect which was noticed in this particular process is there was a inadequate aeration in PF. So this was also observed by under microscope by observing the yeast health, how the yeast is, whether it is healthy or it is under stress. So accordingly, the actions were taken in terms of treating the recycling streams. As the contamination observed in recycling streams, first the recycling streams were treated with antimicrobials, then the CAP of all the lines were done properly. PF filter was changed as the contamination is coming through the air filter, which is not proper, and sparger was cleaned for the proper aeration. After that, the yeast started growing properly in PF, and the recycling streams contamination was addressed, so fermentation started running smooth. So this is another kind of case study where how the recycling streams and other things will impact the yeast. Based on the gut feel, we can take the decisions, but it may not give us right results every time. So if we have the proper analysis results, the decision or the action which we are taking will properly work it out. Otherwise, we'll be keep trying different options, and we may be ending up with without any proper results in it. So let us see how what is the power of analysis and how it is going to save us lakhs of rupees if a proper analysis was supported for the ethanol fermentation process. The first one is, if we look at the area, the improved ethanol yield. If we improve the ethanol yield from 0.5% to 1.5%, which itself will be saving us around 6 to 18 crores per annum in a grain plant, which is mostly a 100 KLPD plant. The same way, the reduced sugar losses by doing the better conversion using right enzymes and the right quantity of the enzymes, and having less RS or RSTs will help us to save around 1 to 2 crore rupees, 2 crore rupees per annum. Yeast health management, as we have seen in the second case study also, yeast was not able to perform properly and it was dead, and because of that the fermentation was stuck. If we are able to manage these kind of aspects, minimum of 50 lakhs to 1 crore rupees per annum, we will be able to save it. The contamination control is another aspect which is a crucial thing in any fermentation, any ethanol fermentation. So if we by identifying the contamination early, detecting it early and taking early steps using antimicrobials or any other CAP measures, definitely is going to save us 50 lakhs to 1.5 crore per annum. The enzyme optimization is another aspect. How much starch I'm having in the system or how much glucose is present in the system, and based on that, if I use my enzymes properly at the adequate doses, it will help me to generate more value with my same starch. So by doing the enzyme optimization, approximately 30 to 80 lakh rupees will be saved per annum, and reduce distillation load as we run the fermentation smooth. When we achieve higher alcohols, higher percentage of alcohol, then definitely it is going to consume less steam, and then the distillation efficiency will be improved, and which is going to save us 40 lakhs to 1 crore rupee per annum. So these estimates are rough estimates based on a 100 KLPD grain plant, which gives us a gist about how much money we are going to save. So this is what we have to focus, and we have to ensure the little spend we do today by putting up these equipment or by setting up our own good QC lab is going to give us long-term benefits and long-term savings. So the key takeaways are: a well-equipped analytical lab with regular analysis is key for our efficiencies and huge savings. So with the use of same raw material, same amount of raw material, same amount of starch, if I am able to generate more alcohol, higher yields, that is definitely going to save me huge cost and huge savings for me. When it comes to the savings, we should not only count the output, how much amount I am able to save, but also how much amount of inputs I am able to reduce. The inputs may be a water, starch, steam, enzymes, yeast. So all these factors matters a lot when it comes to the savings. So if we are able to save all these things by using good analytical tools, definitely it is going to be a huge saving and good cost benefit going to be for the plants. Real-time monitoring is another aspect which allows preventive actions. So if we use of such equipments like NIR and HPLC will definitely help us in real-time monitoring, which helps us a lot of uh, um, which helps us to counter a lot of challenges which are coming up in the fermentation, like pH drop, temperature drift, DO issues, or maybe the contamination related aspects. So all these aspects will be countered by usage of the right equipment like real-time monitoring equipments like NIR and HPLC. So more, on an average, if we see, even if we are able to save 0.5%, I mean, we are able to achieve 0.5% increase in the yield of 100 KLPD plant, on an average, we can save 5 crores to 6 crore rupees per annum. This is the huge benefit on a very minimal basis, which we was considered. So the amount of time, the amount of money we are going to spend on the analysis are going to pay really a good paybacks to us in the long term basis. So there are certain these are the glimpse of the Catalyst lab with the infrastructure what we have for the analysis which is required for the industry. So I would like to mention certain plants where the HPLC and the NIR being used properly and they are getting the benefits out of it. I think if someone is present from grain fuel plant, I remember Mr. Akshatji was mentioning it to me that he has been using the HPLC and NIR DA7250 model and he is getting benefited out of it. So Akshatji, if you are present, probably after this session, I would request you to kindly add your insights and share your experience with other participants in the group. Thank you. Open to the questions.
If any of the team members have questions, you may please go ahead and ask now.
Yeah, we have been using the NIR and HPLC for since commissioning itself. So it has saved us a lot of RS RSG. I would say that. So whenever there's RS, earlier I remember when we commissioned the plant, the first incident that happened, right after then we realized that we can make a lot of savings using HPLC. So our lab is fully equipped. We have NIRs, we have HPLCs, we have machines for aflatoxin, warm calorimeters. So, I mean, if any one of you have any questions for me, then you can just directly contact me and I'll let you know my experience.
I'm really amazed to understand from Akshatji when I met him first time that he has been using NIR, which is a very new thing to the Indian industry. But I think down the line it is going to generate a lot of value when we start using these real-time monitoring equipments. And thanks Akshatji for sharing your thoughts on NIR and HPLC.
Yeah.
I think these kind of technological advancements will really help for the industry to generate more efficiencies out of the same raw material.
Definitely. And when I went to FEW in US, that's when I realized that actually lab analysis is the real where you can increase profitability. That's the real game. Yeah.
There is a question on chat. Do you have any calculation to back up your 5 crore saving claims that you have showcased in key takeaways sheet? Yes, sir. Definitely, there is it is based on the data only. So if we are able to save enzyme cost and if we are able to save contamination, for example, if we take the simple contamination aspects itself, one lactic acid molecule is equal to one ethanol molecule. So if 1000 ppm of lactic acid is getting formed in the system, that means we are losing 1000 ppm of alcohol. So these calculations were done based on that data only.
Any other questions from the member side?
Hello, this is Neeraj Pratapman from Kripco Green Energy Private Limited. Hello,
Good evening, Neeraj ji, bataiye.
My question is, can we eliminate or reduce the uses of urea?
Sir, there are certain aspects involved in it. If we look at the cost dynamics, if you try to compare the urea price with any other nitrogen source, I would say this is not possible because there is no such material which is available as cheap as urea. But if we really look at it, urea availability is a challenge. Yes, there are products which are available which can help us in replacing the urea, but not at the cost of urea.
Okay. And my another question is that yeast conditioning is recommended or not recommended before pitching in pre-fermenter?
Sir, it is always better to do the yeast conditioning. Rehydration is a very important step as you understand the yeast drying process. Yeast will be dried in such a way that when it is in the active form, that is the reason we say it is an active dry yeast. So when it is dried or it is made into small yeast granules in the right phase, so immediately if we try to put it into pre-fermenter or into the fermenter, what happens is the sugar load which is present in the fermenter or pre-fermenter will create stress on the yeast. Just to avoid that, if we do the preconditioning, if we do the rehydration for 30 minutes or 35 minutes as we mentioned at the right temperature, so it will help yeast to come to the normal, understand or accumulate or acclimatize to the process. And then if we pitch it into the PF or fermenter, it will be more beneficial. So I recommend personally the rehydration of the yeast.
So for the sir, so you are recommending the yeast conditioning is always beneficiary. So there is a separate vessel is to be used for the yeast conditioning.
If we have that, it will be better, sir, because as you know, it helps us in providing the right temperature, and it will also help us in avoiding the contamination. If we try to do it in any vessel which is available, maybe a small plastic container or something like that, we don't know what is there previously in that particular container. Because of that, contamination may come into the picture. So just to avoid that, if we have a vessel which is maintained, the temperature is maintained, that will help us to avoid the contamination and other things. So if plant is equipped with such kind of equipment, that is preferable.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Welcome, sir.
Hello, sir. This NIR method normally using for starch, protein, fats. As you mentioning the checking the analysis, sugars and alcohols. Anywhere in India, they're using for testing the fermentation process.
Sir, one thing is we have one machine which was kept in our R&D. And as I mentioned it to you, and as Akshat ji from Grain Fuels has mentioned it, he is already using it. You can interact with him and to get more insights.
Okay, thank you.
Myself, Nandalal Pandey. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
What is the base sugar concentration for the alcohol industry in the fermenter?
Sir, when it comes to the grain fermentation, it will be suggested to always maintain the RS between 5 to 6%. If we maintain in that range, yeast will be able to properly use it, and then it will be able to give the best performance.
And at the same time, what should be the yeast concentration and yeast dose for the fermenter?
Sir, yeast dose for the fermenter, I remember it in the ppm range. I have to do the calculation. But as per the suggested, the manufacturer suggested ranges, you can use it.
Okay. Thank you,
sir. Sir, what is the cost of lactometer?
Sir, it will be approximately 1.5 lakh rupees for the handheld device. and there will be a strips which will be coming along with it. It will be like a simple our glucose monitor, like how we test the blood glucose. The similar way it will be having strips. The strips packet will be costing around 8,000 rupees for 50 strips, if I'm not wrong. There may be plus or minus depending on the current market pricing. So 1.5 lakh rupees the instrument handheld device, and the strips will be costing around 8,000 rupees for 50 strips.
Sir, can we do the aflatoxin analysis through NICR machine, or it is not possible?
Through NIR, it is not possible at this point of time because it doesn't have the calibration packages for it. But down the line, if someone develops it, it can be done. But currently, I would recommend to get it done through HPLC, which is a more accurate and reliable method.
Okay, sir. For the costing purpose, which equipment you recommend? You recommend NIR or GC or both? You recommend?
Sir, if a plant wants to go for a long-term vision, I recommend both HPLC and NIR.
Okay.
But to address the current needs, if you want to go, first go with HPLC.
Okay, sir. HPLC.
But my personal recommendation is down the line, if you go with both HPLC and NIR, you will be paid back.
Okay, sir. But in your PPT, you mentioned that there is no skill required to operate the NIR equipment. While operating the HPCLC or GC, more skilled person is required. So I think so. NIR is very used to equipment.
NIR is very good equipment, sir, but the challenge is when you are procuring it from the vendor, as I mentioned it to you during the presentation also, kindly ensure you get the right calibration packages. It is like a gun or revolver having without any bullets. So when you are buying it, please buy with the calibration packages, right calibration packages, so that there won't be any challenge. Even a normal person can do the analysis.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions from the member side?
Hello. I just have a question, please.
Yes, sir.
Hello. I was just wondering how do we check the quality of enzymes, from how one enzyme is better than the other, how the user can find out rather than depending on the certificate from the supplier. How can we make sure that there is no batch to batch variation? How do we deal with it?
So the best option is properly performing the enzyme assays. The enzyme assays performance is little tricky because a lot of pH, buffers and other preparations has to be taken care. That is one way, that is the right way or the correct way of doing it. But the other way is how much RS is getting released or how much sugars are getting released when we use these enzymes. So when we do the liquefaction, after liquefaction, if we do a profiling using HPLC, then we can understand which enzyme is performing better or how it is performing.
See, the issue is only the lab to lab variation and, not always very standardized way of doing enzyme assay. That's why I was wondering if you have any simpler way to know.
Sir, there is no simple way. The most simplest way is certain enzymes will be having kits. There will be a small kits. Megazyme is one such supplier who provides these kits. But again, as I mentioned it to you, the mixing of these reagents or ingredients at the right quantities matters a lot. So yes, it is a tricky, but if I think properly trained person will be able to handle it.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I have some questions regarding process. What is main cause of forming in fermenter? Question number 1. Second question is, sir,
Sir, can you please repeat the first question?
Sir, what is main cause of forming in fermenter?
Okay.
Second question is, sir, what is appropriate dosing of urea in grain fermentation? Next question, sir, how can remove contamination from fermentation process? Next one is, how can increase protein content in drier section?
So the first question to answer you, the major reason for foaming mostly comes from the contamination point of view. When the
Yes, sir.
fermenter is getting contaminated, so it may create a lot of byproducts by the bacteria, and the bacteria will also form some kind of slime on the surface of the wort. Because of that, the air or the carbon dioxide which is getting produced during the ethanol fermentation, it won't come out easily. So because of the trapping, the fermenter wort is started floating to the top and it creates some kind of foaming. So this is the main reason, and the contamination is the main culprit in this particular aspect. Coming to your second question, how much urea has to be used in the fermentation process?
In
The
ppm.
minimum requirement has to be ascertained based on the protein content present in the in the flour or the grain we are using. But on an average, if we see, around 500 to 600 ppm of urea is required.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Sir, next question is, how can remove contamination from fermentation process?
So to remove the contamination from the fermentation process, it is like we have to start working from the beginning. So whatever raw material we receive, we have to store it properly. And then when it comes into the liquefaction and other things, we have to ensure we use the correct right water. For example, even if we use the recycled water or recycling streams, ensure that it won't have any contamination or it won't have any abnormalities in it. Properly treat it and use it. So if we take care of raw material and then the liquefaction process properly with the right water, majority of the challenges will be addressed. And the next point is at the PF preparation process, we have to ensure that there is no contamination in the PF vessel. So these are the three aspects. If we focus, remaining will be taken care to the larger extent.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Since there are no more questions from the member side, let us conclude the webinar. So we are very thankful to Dr. Pavan Kumar as a valuable knowledge partner. Please accept a token of appreciation from GEMA. This will be sent to you by mail also. Thank you once again. Thank you all for your valuable time and participation. Good evening, sir.
Thank you all. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.